All right, so again, thank you all for taking time out of your busy days to attend today's session on teaching English abroad after graduation, which is organized by the International Center in partnership with the English Language Institute. We're all very happy to see you here. Next slide. So today we are going to be giving you an overview of things that you need to know if you are considering teaching English abroad after graduation. In addition, we're going to show you some actual examples of places and programs through which you could teach abroad around the world. Then we're going to hear a little bit about ways in which you can prepare for the experience while a student here at the University of Michigan. As well as various certification options if you're interested in pursuing additional training in this area. Lastly, we'll highlight some of the personal and professional benefits of teaching English abroad, and then have time left over, hopefully, for some Q&A. I do want to mention that if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to pop them in the chat. We will be monitoring that, and we'll hopefully be able to give you answers to your questions that way. All right, so I'm briefly going to introduce today's presenters who you're going to hear from shortly. We are joined by Pamela Bogart, a lecturer from the English Language Institute, Dr. Anna Eddy, the Associate Director of the English Language Institute, Jake Kelzer, who's an advisor in the International Center and one of my colleagues, and myself, I'm Kelly Nelson. I work in the International Center.
All right, hi everyone. This is Jake, who Kelly just introduced, so thanks Kelly. I'm just gonna give some basics about teaching English abroad, just some what you should knows. First of all, it can be very difficult to find a paid full-time job abroad right after you graduate due to different potential citizenship restrictions or visa restrictions, or maybe positions are only reserved for citizens of the country that you're interested in going. For those reasons, teaching abroad is one of the most accessible options for postgrads. It's also accessible because teaching certification likely won't be needed. There are differences between some programs where you would primarily be a teaching assistant, so you would assist a head teacher in a classroom. And then there are other positions where you would actually be the primary teacher in the classroom. And those positions may require some type of certification, but not all require certification. They're also accessible because they are affordable in the sense that you sometimes will not have to pay at all to participate in the program. Actually, many times you won't have to pay. And then in addition to that, they are paid positions. So they're one of the very few postgrad positions that you can find, accessibly find paid abroad. Also, they are typically run for an academic school year. So this will range maybe from September or October to May or June. And that's most normal. There are some options where you can teach for less time, maybe like a semester long. So maybe September to December or January to April or May, but typically they're for the entire academic year. Next, you should be aware that deadlines can be early, even up to a year in advance for some, especially US government-run programs, which we will get to later. For other programs, deadlines may be, since they'll typically start for fall of 2021, deadlines might range from January to March or something like that. So just be aware when you're thinking of your postgrad plans. Next, you can definitely gain skills transferable to all future careers. Some of you might think that teaching abroad is specifically for those who want to teach as a career, but that's not necessarily true. And we'll get to some transferable skills that you can gain from teaching abroad to all careers in later slides. Next, what many of you, myself included, was always interested in for teaching abroad is just the opportunity to get experience abroad that wasn't possible. So lots of opportunities for travel, COVID aside, of course, but you have lots of free time and you can be in an area where travel might be very accessible and you can see a lot of different places. And lastly, there are a number of inclusions in teaching abroad, depending on program. Some might include the flight over and accommodation and a salary or a stipend, while other programs, you might be on your own for expenses like flights and accommodations, but you will still get paid. So that is something we do want to stress, that these are paid positions. Okay, so I briefly highlighted COVID-19. So what type of impact will COVID have on these various teaching English abroad programs? The answer is a bit challenging because how it will be handled is program specific. All of the programs that we'll be discussing today will begin in the fall of 2021. So things could be vastly different now until then. The other thing to add is that while things hopefully will be better by then, if they're not, these programs will have now had over a year to adjust to, I guess, the times of COVID. So, so they'll be a lot more prepared and understanding of different complications that could arise. So that's something that hopefully would be a little bit more reassuring. At this point, all programs seem to be moving as planned. Even from the fall 2020, so currently, to the spring 2021 calendar, those programs are still running as normal. I actually just met with a student who is teaching abroad in Spain currently. So he just got there about a month ago, and I won't get into details about how his experience has been, but definitely has been affected by COVID. But the organization he went through is very flexible and understanding of what's going on. So I imagine that other programs are aware of the complications that can arise and the situation that is currently going on. So so the point is that these programs are still happening. And of course, we recommend that you keep checking their websites that we'll share with you, as well as their social media platforms for any types of updates to their program.
All right, so one thing that's really exciting about the opportunity to teach English abroad is that there are opportunities to do so in many locations across the world. So on the next few slides, I'm going to briefly highlight some reputable programs and opportunities in regions around the world so you can get an idea of the places that you could potentially go in the future. As a heads up, I am going to go through the slides fairly briefly, but everyone who registered for this event will be getting a copy of the slides afterwards so that you can actually click on the links to learn more about each program. Okay, so before we begin, I wanted to mention that throughout this presentation, certain programs and opportunities will be highlighted in the soft yellow color. And this means that the program will be featured in our lineup of program-specific Q&A sessions that will take place during the first 2 weeks in November. So more on that later. But we're going to start with our overview of opportunities in Asia. And this region of the world offers so many teach abroad opportunities, probably the most of any region of the world, as you'll see. As you can see, even from this slide on the screen, that a lot of the opportunities center around certain countries. So South Korea is a really popular location for teach abroad programs. Japan is also very, very popular, as is the country of China. So we also see, you know, Thailand and Taiwan in here too, among others. I would say that South Korea, Japan, and China are generally the countries where you are going to find the highest paid teaching placements in the world. They're also the countries in which you will likely be the primary teacher in the classroom working full time as opposed to a teaching assistant. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And as you can see here, there are several of these programs we'll be giving program specific program specific sessions in early November. So you can learn a little bit more about those opportunities soon. Next slide, please.
All right, so for Europe, there are stricter regulations around foreign nationals working in European countries, so it can be a little bit trickier, but as you can see, there's still a handful of program options in certain European countries. Some programs are government sponsored and organized by the host country's Ministry of Education, such as Spain, the Czech Republic, and France. Others are independent programs, such as in Hungary and Russia, and as well as a different option in Spain through an education abroad provider called CIEE. And then there are also US-based governmental organizations that run programs such as the Fulbright program as well as the Peace Corps program. And as you can see, for the Spanish Ministry of Education program, as well as CIEE in Spain, we will have program-specific sessions about those. And then the Fulbright and Peace Corps will also have a specific session in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so formal teaching abroad options are a little more limited in Latin America. The largest government-sponsored program is in Chile, and CIEE also has a program in Chile. And then there are other various US-based opportunities, US governmental-based opportunities, such as Princeton Latin America, Peace Corps, Fulbright, and then an independent education abroad provider called TravelBud has one in Costa Rica.
All right, so I'm not currently aware of any country-specific government-sponsored Teach Abroad programs on the continent of Africa, like some of the other examples we've seen for Spain, Chile, Japan, etc. But if you're interested in teaching abroad on the continent of Africa, we would definitely recommend looking into the Peace Corps, which is the first program listed here. Again, it's a US government agency. The majority of their volunteer placements are on the continent of Africa. And even though I'm referring to it as a volunteer placement, if you are a Peace Corps volunteer, you are given a monthly stipend to offset the cost of living in whatever location you're in. So Peace Corps is definitely a really great way to get to Africa if you are interested in education and in that, on that continent. We already mentioned Fulbright before. Fulbright offers programs in many African countries. And so that is a great option to look into as well, especially if you are interested in maybe doing research too. That's a great option. And then the last option on this page is Princeton in Africa. So there are 3 versions of the Princeton program. One is Princeton Latin America, which Jake just mentioned, Princeton in Africa, and then the largest one is Princeton in Asia. And it offers education-related placements in those 3 regions, and is a very long-standing program, very reputable. Even though the word Princeton is in the title, it is not reserved just for Princeton students. It is definitely open to University of Michigan students and recent grads as well. So on all of the regional slides, pretty much, you have seen Fulbright and Peace Corps programs listed. And I did want to emphasize that we would really recommend looking into both of these programs if you are interested in teaching abroad after graduation. So we've already referenced the fact that both of these programs are US government-sponsored programs. And so this does mean that participation in these two programs is limited to US citizens. Both have really early application deadlines, nearly a year in advance of planned departure. So unfortunately, the Fulbright deadline for opportunities taking place in 2021 to 2022 has already passed. So the Fulbright deadline was back in August. But the Fulbright application process will actually start again for the following academic year, early in 2021. So if you are thinking ahead and aren't wanting to go abroad next year, but the year after, then Fulbright is definitely still an option for you. Peace Corps does continue to accept applications. So Peace Corps volunteers are actually currently not in country due to the coronavirus, but they're hoping to begin sending volunteers again in 2021. So especially if you were a senior, or if you are a graduating graduate student, or also an alum viewing this presentation, we definitely are still encouraging people to apply to the Peace Corps. They're still processing applications, even though volunteers are not currently in country. So both of these programs, both Fulbright and the Peace Corps, have offices and advisors at U of M that offer a lot of advising and application support throughout the year to U of M students and alumni. And so we definitely recommend taking advantage of it. When you get these slides in your email, you'll be able to click on the links to be directed to U of M specific information about these two opportunities. Okay, and so throughout this, Jake and I have referenced these program-specific spotlight sessions. So this presentation is really, an overview of things that you should consider and need to know about teaching abroad. These sessions that will take place starting next week and the week after are really specific to the programs that you see listed on the screen right now. So our first program, or the first session, is actually an information session that will be put on by JET, which is the Japanese government teaching program. It's a very, very popular program. That particular session is not being put on just for U of M students. It's part of the regular info session lineup, but all the rest of the sessions will be, directed specifically to the University of Michigan population. CIEE Teach Abroad has a variety of Teach Abroad programs, as does TravelBud. Jake will actually be presenting about his experience with the North American Language and Culture Assistant in Spain program. We'll feature Peace Corps, which will have returned volunteers speaking about their experiences in the education sector. And then finally, there will be a session specifically about the teaching opportunities through the Fulbright program. So hope to see many of you at these sessions in the next couple of weeks. So next, we are going to hear from our two colleagues from the English Language Institute about ways in which you can prepare for the experience of teaching English abroad after graduation while you're still a student at the University of Michigan.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And my name is Anna Eddy again, and I'm the Associate Director at the English Language Institute. And I'm here today with my colleague, Pamela Bogart.
Hi, everybody.
Some of you may be familiar with us, but if you're not, I just thought I'll give you a very short overview of who we are and how we can be helpful to you. We are an LSA unit, and we serve all of U of M schools and colleges. So we offer academic English courses as well as service learning and ESL teacher preparation courses. Most of our courses do not involve any extra course fees, and our courses are credit-bearing, grades are pass and fail, and mostly we work with international students, but some of our courses can be of interest to everyone. And you can register for our courses via the Wolverine Access. Next slide, please. So today we would like to share some of our offerings with you, and which could be of interest to you as you're thinking of possibly teaching abroad after graduation. So these two courses are community engaged courses for international graduate students. And so I will mostly focus on the ELI 560, language and culture in context, since it will be offered in the winter. And so this course, or in this course, students practice and improve their communicative language skills within the context of the United States society and culture. Students examine local issues such as education, poverty, or homelessness. And this course is a discussion-based course with lots of group work and invited guest speakers from the local community. Usually it's a pretty small class and students enjoy it greatly. That's what we hear. This winter it will be taught online with weekly Zoom meetings. So this course can be really useful for students who would like to work in the United States. It can also be helpful for those international students who may be considering teaching English abroad, as this course addresses issues they most probably be encountering working abroad. And it will also allow them to improve their communicative language skills in various social contexts. The other course, the ELI 561, Community Engaged Language Practicum, which is the practicum, it's basically the practical application of what we have offer in ELI 560. So unfortunately, we will not be offering it in 2021, just based on the current situation. But I thought, Pamela, if you would like to add anything in regards to ELI 560 and 561, feel free to do so. You're muted.
Thank you. I think we can move on to our undergrad classes.
Okay. All right. So we offer ELI 390, Community Engaged Learning in ESL teaching context. And so this particular course focuses on teacher preparation and EFL and ESL. And so EFL is teaching English as a foreign language and ESL is teaching English as a second language. In other words, if you are teaching English here in the United States, you will be teaching it as a second language. And if you are going abroad, you will be teaching most probably English as a foreign language. So this course addresses the basically the fundamentals that you would need to approach teaching ESL. It is designed for undergraduate students to learn about teaching English as a second language, and it provides students with ESL teaching methods and techniques, as well as hands-on teaching practice experience in local service organizations. So this course emphasizes communicative language teaching and language learning issues in community contexts. So this service learning approach enables all of the participants to prepare and reflect on their practice teaching in an ESL classroom or tutoring program. So in this course, students assist in a local ESL classroom or tutoring program. They complete between 15 and 20 hours virtually over the semester in service learning with community partners. Potential site placements are Family Learning Institute, English Language Institute, and other local organizations. So there is no exams, and this coming winter 21, it will be taught completely online, and there will be a few synchronous meetings, lots of group work, and work with the instructor. We keep the schedule flexible. Pamela, would you like to add anything?
Just that one of the hallmarks of 390 that makes it a really special class is that as a small seminar, the students get to know each other and the instructors really well. And often when I'm teaching this class, my experience has been that seniors will come to me and say, you know, I never got to know other instructors this well. And so if before you graduate, you're looking for an opportunity both to look at teaching English and to look at grappling with big ideas about privilege and power and language and your role in teaching and what that means and your identity as a speaker of English as a first or a second language, in a community with others who are super invested in this kind of combination of community service and reflection. It's a really lovely classroom community that emerges in every section of this class year after year. Carmela Romano Gillette and Judy Dyer are the two teachers of this class right now and in the winter, and are really phenomenal human beings. And so I just can't recommend this class enough.
Thank you. Thank you, Pamela. Next slide, please.
So it's my turn to talk about this class, which is also a fun, small, hands-on seminar. Rather than the focus being on teaching in the local community, English as a second language, the focus is on teaching sometime in the future internationally. And so in this class, we organize, at the beginning of the semester, we kind of look at like, what is this project of teaching internationally? What does that mean even? And how do I fit into this bigger global context of English language teaching in the world? And why so many people are motivated to learn English, and what role do I want to play in that whole system? And quickly from there, we move into, okay, so given the ways that I'm grappling with my role, what is it that I might do in a classroom to actually develop lessons? And the lesson planning starts from the beginning of the semester. We have a really nice, very accessible and low-cost textbook called More Than a Native Speaker that guides us through thinking about teaching speaking, teaching listening, teaching reading, teaching writing, teaching grammar, teaching vocabulary, teaching culture, and unpacking each of these at different levels and different contexts, with the idea that this isn't a master's program in how to teach English as an additional language, but it is a program that helps you fill whatever toolbox you already have much heavier with a much more, what do I want to say, flexible array of tools that you can use to develop lessons, to create activities, to manage classroom dynamics. And during the class, you pick a place you might go. You might be really certain where you want to go, or you might say, well, maybe the JET program, or maybe the Peace Corps, and that's okay. And you take that case study situation and follow that through the whole class, building lesson plans for it, doing research on the country and how teaching English plays a role in the economy and the education sector and socially. So that at the end of the class, you have not only your sets of lesson plans and your engagement with materials and lots of role play lessons that you teach during the class, but also a real sense of context that you might be moving into and how you might apply all this in that context. In some semesters, we also have the added bonus of being able to join a practicum for like half an hour a week or an hour a week with a school that is located internationally that wants English language tutors on Zoom. And so that is a possibility that's in the works this winter as well. Happily, the teacher of this class for winter is with us here today. This is my wonderful colleague, Becky Cato, who has great plans for this winter. And we just wonder if you want to say hi to the group assembled here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Pamela. I just want to say for me, teaching abroad has been really the most transformative experience in my life so far. So I'm really looking forward to meeting the students in this course and hearing what your goals are for studying abroad, and then working together to develop the tools that will help to make that goal a reality.
Thanks, Becky. All right, Anna, is there anything that you wanted to add about 393 or the graduate meet together section of it, 591? Okay.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you, Pamela. So no, not at this point. I think we've, if you have any questions that you would like for us to elaborate, feel free to maybe use the chat feature or just use our email addresses and just send us an email with questions. I think we can move on to the next slide. So we have another exciting opportunity to get involved and get experience with international students. So we offer conversation circles. This is an old program, about 30 years old, and it is designed to for international students to basically come together to meet new people, to learn about more about American culture, and just have conversation on a variety of topics. So there are volunteer opportunities for those who would like to facilitate a conversation circle. And basically, it would be a small circle of about 6 people that meet on a regular basis once a week for about an hour for about 10 weeks each semester. And basically, a facilitator would organize the time of the meeting and facilitate conversations. Initially, of course, the facilitator would be coming up with the topics, but eventually students or participants offer their ideas, etc., etc. And so under usual circumstances, as you can see in the picture, students get to do all sorts of cultural stuff, or they just meet in a cafe or in a museum and just all go on walks. So it's a great opportunity to really expose yourself to other cultures and offer, or share your own culture. So right now we have all the circles are running, but there will be opportunities in February to sign up as a facilitator. And it's strongly recommended. I've done it a few times, and I would say that it's just a really rewarding experience. Again, if you have any questions about it, let us know. I'd be happy to guide you through it. You can read more about it on our website. So, Pamela? No? Okay. All right. So, now, certifications for teaching English abroad. We thought we'd just give you a general overview. Just to make it clear, the English Language Institute does not offer any options in terms of certification, but we'd like to share just some of our knowledge and experience with you.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Yes.
To preview one bullet point in the center of the slide where it says ELA 393 supplies a PDF certificate that has been useful to some students. We do give you a PDF certificate, and if you want a paper certificate, and that actually has been useful to some individuals in searching for a job and proving that they've done some formal training, even though this certificate is not allied with any particular internationally recognized certification body. And in fact, there isn't an agreed upon international set of things to certify. So each of the things that Anna will go over on this list is kind of a startup business to try to capture the market of people who want jobs and want to prove that they have the qualifications to get jobs teaching English internationally.
Thank you. And yes, as Pamela just mentioned, there is no one place to go for a certificate or any organization that runs this. So, but there are a few things, a few staples, so to speak, that you can rely on. And in the United States is a TESOL organization. Basically, if you use one of these links, you can learn more about the TESOL organization. And I would say if you are interested in teaching abroad, teaching English abroad, I would say that's a good resource in general for a variety of reasons. But most importantly, they do guide you through the complex certificate idea, so to speak, because there are all sorts of certificates. You go online and you find so many of them. And the cost is very different. Anywhere from, and let's say if it's an online program, about $200, anywhere to about $2,000 if it's in person. So So please feel free to, once these slides become available, to follow these links and read more about the organization and then how to evaluate the program. So this organization offers the guidelines that you can follow to evaluate the program and see if this program is the right program for you. There's also a link there where you can search for a TESOL program, let's say within your state, or if you want an online program or a university-based program. So again, there's just a multitude of programs available. A Cambridge alternative to TESOL is Certificate in Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. Not to say that it may be of interest to you, but just to let you know that it is a British version of TESOL, of a TESOL type of certificate. It's a little bit more centralized, but again, it's I would say that unless you have to, I would say I would stick with TESOL. So we do have a local program at the University of Michigan Flint. It's a TESOL certificate program, basically consists of 15 credit hours, and you can take those courses associated with the TESOL certificate without the association with the degree. So if you follow this link here, you will see a recorded recent webinar, and I think there'll be more information coming on an upcoming webinar on this particular TESOL certificate option. So there is another option that's offered at the University of Michigan, but it's for students of School of Education. The School of Education offers an ESL endorsement. Basically, it's an addition to a Michigan K-12 teaching certification that allows teachers to teach in Michigan schools teaching English. So that would not necessarily apply to you, but so you know, if you see it, it's something that it's associated with a degree, and you probably don't need to look into this option. Pamela, would you like to add anything? Or Becky, if you would like to add anything to this?
No, thank you. That's really helpful. And I think one of the things we were talking with Kelly and Jake about as we were planning for the session is how much your preparation needs to map onto where you think you might want to go. So doing that early research on places you might want to go, and then what organizations and what programs, and then what jobs just floating out there to apply for as individuals exist, and what is that region looking for, what is that organization looking for, because then that will drive whether you need some kind of certificate to verify the skill set that you'd bring with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to add to this, I would say that some kind of preparation in this regard would probably be very, very helpful to you, whether a certificate is required or not, because that would really empower you and open more doors for you with these opportunities. And then you would probably also have a much better and more rewarding experience teaching English abroad with some preparation, whether it's an ELI course or if it's a certificate, even if it's a brief encounter with this, that would probably be very, very helpful. Just speaking from personal experience, teaching abroad, I've taught in Russia and in Germany, and I've taught in the United States. And I would say that from my experience and my colleagues and people that I've met along the way, students teaching English abroad, that it's helpful. I would strongly recommend that you prepare in some way. Well, I guess we are good here. Thank you. And yes, if you have any questions, feel free to ask now or later. And I'm inviting you to check out our website. There's lots of information there as well. And Kelly, thank you for sharing the link to the University of Michigan Flint option. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anna and Pamela. Really appreciate it. Do want to echo that both what Anna and Kelly, you said in the chat how teaching English abroad with zero formal like certificate or preparation is not ideal, and it's something that I did, and I really would have benefited more from getting taking some type of class through U of M, or doing some type of like certificate program or course that would have been very beneficial and made my teaching English abroad in Spain experience a bit more rewarding. Not that it wasn't, but it would have really nicely added to that. Okay, so I'm going to, before we get into our Q&A, I'm going to discuss some career benefits of teaching English abroad. And so what transferable skills can you gain from teaching English abroad? Well, first of all, you'll gain the ability to work across cultures, which is becoming basically essential in today's globalized world. So that is a very effective way to do that, is working in another country. So some of you may be seeking opportunities in a country where you've had, where you've studied the language where you'd want to go. So you might have a goal of either learning a foreign language or increasing your foreign language skills. Others, it might be challenging to gain language skills if you're going to a country where you have no experience with the language or limited experience. But at minimum, you will gain valuable communication skills from working and potentially living with people from other cultures. Another skill that I want to mention is adaptability. Now, all of you already have this skill because you've lived through COVID, and it's just a time where adaptation is essential. But when you're living and working in a country different from where you grew up, then yes, adaptability is necessary, and it's a skill that you will without a doubt gain. Since you'll be teaching in a classroom, you'll definitely gain some public speaking skills, as well as possibly project development or management skills, because your school or your position might require some type of certain projects to do throughout your time while you're teaching, whether it's, extracurricular projects or presentations about US holidays or about yourself, different things like that. So those are valuable transferable skills as well. And then the last skills are problem solving and resilience, which, you gain these skills by traveling in general, and then they become heightened or strengthened even more when you are actually teaching abroad or working abroad in another country. Each program might also have its own unique benefits, so you will hear more about them and the transferable skills you can gain from them in the program-specific questions in the following weeks. So other career benefits is teaching English abroad can help in choosing a career path. So first of all, and this is the case for me actually, is you can become exposed to new careers and areas of interest. Just briefly want to mention that I was a history major at U of M, had no idea what to do with that, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to teach abroad, to figure out what I wanted to do next. And then I was exposed to the field of international education, and that directly led to my job at the International Center. On the other hand, teaching English abroad can reaffirm or narrow your career focus. So let's say that you are in the School of Education and you want to become a teacher, or you want to become involved in international education in some way. That can be a hands-on experience that reaffirms this is what I want to do with my career. Also, you'll have numerous opportunities to build networks while being abroad, whether it's in the classroom or outside of the classroom. You'll have the opportunity to meet so many people, not only from the country that you're teaching in, but also possibly others from your own country who are teaching with you. And how I even found out about, you can work in international education at a university was through the networks I made from other people, other Americans who were teaching English abroad with me. So definitely a great opportunity to build networks. And then lastly, teaching English abroad is a valuable experience that you can put on your resume and even discuss on your grad school applications or in job interviews. And it just makes you a more competitive candidate or applicant. It's a very unique experience that could definitely set you apart from the competition. And with that said, we are to the Q&A session or portion of the session. So if you'd like, you can feel free to unmute yourselves and ask the question, or you can type your question into the chat box.
Well, while folks might be thinking of questions, I do want to just give one more reminder about the program-specific sessions that will be taking place. I'm going to pop the link into the chat. And so on that website, you'll see the list of sessions. You'll see a brief description of where each of those programs are placing folks. And you'll also see a link to get the Zoom link or to RSVP. So again, hope to see you at some of those sessions. Oh, great. I see a question coming through, I think, for my ELI colleagues. Are TEFL certifications equivalent to TESOL certifications?
It's a wonderful question. What is the difference between TEFL and TESOL? It's really just what the letters stand for. So TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language, very focused on teaching English outside of English-speaking regions of the world. TESOL is more generic, teaching English to speakers of other languages anywhere. And so TEFL would be focused on that more narrow audience of teaching internationally in an environment that is generally not primarily English speaking. The trick is that sometimes things are called certifications and they involve doing a whole master's degree. And sometimes they're a certificate program that's like a webinar and then you get a certificate at the end. And so there's a lot of variety in what that word certification means. I'm real curious as you're sort of chewing on questions that you might have or waiting to see what questions come up from others, where, since we have a small group with us today, it looks like maybe 7 students or 8, where you're, sure, Catherine, where you're thinking about going, what kind of environment you're hoping to potentially teach English in. In the meantime, we have a question from Catherine again. Thank you. Heard that the Fulbright program is quite competitive. Do many of students get accepted into the program? That sounds like a Kelly and Jake question, but I can relate. I was a finalist in college in 1990 for a Fulbright that I didn't get.
Well, so I actually did teach abroad through the Fulbright program. I realize now that I never really introduced my kind of qualifications and why I'm even speaking on this topic. So I did participate in the Fulbright U.S. student program, teaching assistantship program in Germany, in between undergrad and graduate school. So I am quite familiar with the Fulbright program. We will be having an individual session on Fulbright as well on November 13th, so definitely want to bring your attention to that. But the Fulbright program is certainly a competitive program, but the level of competitiveness really depends on the specific Fulbright program that you're applying for. So you can kind of think of Fulbright as the umbrella, and then each country actually runs its own program. So some countries have 2 spots for Fulbright English teaching assistants, while other countries like Germany have hundreds. So it really depends on the country that you're applying for. But I will say that if you are interested in the Fulbright, I would definitely recommend contacting the U of M Fulbright office and learning a little bit more about the program, and of course attending the session that will be presented by our U of M Fulbright advisor, because there are so many resources for Fulbright here at Michigan that it makes the process of applying and actually getting a Fulbright just a lot more smooth. And I will say that the University of Michigan is one of the top producers of Fulbright students in the country. So yes, we have a great process here, wonderful advisors. So would definitely recommend looking into the Fulbright if you are thinking about the types of opportunities that they offer.
There are also Fulbright scholars who come to the US to teach their home languages, but who are by training teachers of English as a foreign language, and who have joined us in multiple years in ELI 393 in the 591 graduate section of that. And it has been such an asset to the class to have these experts in teaching internationally participate in the classes as a co-student in the class. We have a really nice shout out from Abigail. Thank you very much in the chat, sharing her positive experience with the Conversation Circles program. And then Sarah, thank you for your question about how early, like sophomore, junior, or senior year, would we recommend taking 390 or 393? I would say for 390, definitely find a semester where you have some time flexibility so that you can map out hours to volunteer at a time that a community agency actually needs your volunteer time. That's the biggest challenge, I think, in scheduling which semester to take that class. The reflective writing that you do, where you're combining the practical and theoretical readings for class with your volunteer experience, can kind of flex depending on, if you are already a super proficient, comfortable academic writer, you can really run with those. And if you're a sophomore and pretty new to kind of this theoretical praxis kind of stuff, that's okay. There's space to be exploring those skills while participating in the course as a sophomore. I think usually most of the students in both of these classes are juniors and seniors, just because they're sort of so focused on like what might you do after college, but they don't need to be. And for 393, I think it's only offered in the winter, so that's a difference. So kind of thinking, which winter would it fit? And it's not a huge workload course, and if there is a practicum option, it's only a half-hour a week, and it's very flexible, usually in timing. And so that one would be thinking about, when is there a winter that you'd like to focus on that? And are you at a point where you can kind of imagine yourself into a context that you could follow through as a case study for the whole class? If you're ready for that as a sophomore, it'd be great to take it the winter of your sophomore year.
I have a quick question. So I'm a senior, and I'm really serious about wanting to go abroad next year. So as a result, I'm applying to multiple different opportunities. However, I'm a little bit worried about kind of the time frames of like getting accepted to those programs and deciding like which one I'm going to do. I don't know if there are like limits on how long you can wait to give an answer to programs. I don't know if you can speak on that at all.
Kelly or Jake, do you want to take that? I can also share anecdotally what I've heard from students who have taken 393 in the past couple of years. But.
Well, we may have to tag team it. I would say that in terms of your question about how much time do you have to make decisions about programs, I think the timeline for all of these programs is actually pretty different. And I think the answer to that question is really probably going to vary by program, unfortunately. I know programs like the Peace Corps, for example, if you are accepted into the Peace Corps, you actually have quite a short turnaround time for letting them know yes or no. So that one is pretty short. So it really depends. However, if you are applying for programs that are known to be, fairly competitive, then I always do recommend to not put all of your eggs in one basket and apply to several different opportunities, because you never know which one is going to work out. But of course, that could mean that you might have to make some tough decisions later on down the road. Pamela, do you want to chime in with maybe some things that you've heard from students?
Yeah, so in the past couple of years, South Korea and Spain have been really popular destinations, partly because of all of the programs that exist for teaching placements in those two countries. And I had, in both cases, students who got a real early admission and students who got admission to a teaching position in those programs like 5 months later, when they had like all but given up on ever hearing back. And they're all in South Korea and Spain now. And have moved successfully through COVID and lockdowns and teaching virtually, and are all thriving. But for those students who had to wait a lot longer to get an answer, they were looking at other positions and needed to negotiate with those other positions that were more kind of informal and say, I'm waiting on hearing on this prestigious thing. I'd love to work with you, but I'd also want to hear their answer. And in some cases that meant giving up on the other. But in some cases they extended the deadline for them to decide. So kind of like Kelly said, it's going to depend on the program, and it makes sense to have kind of a backup plan to your backup plan, knowing that, also knowing if you have friends applying to the same competitive program, they may hear before you, just because it's kind of on a rolling basis during the admission season that this happens, and it doesn't mean anything negative about your application that you haven't heard yet.
So you wouldn't consider it to be super unprofessional to reach out to those whatever employers and say, like, could I have it until I hear back from this other position? I don't know if that's kind of a no-no, or
perhaps they might be like, well, we're going to move on if you're not that interested, right? Just sort of think about any job offer, but to say, I am weighing multiple possible offers. Would it be acceptable to get back to you at the end of next month? Yeah, given that this is for the following academic year, like asking for a big window of time that you hope you might hear back from the other programs. That might be a strategy that could work.
Thank you.
And I'll add as well that I can't really speak to other programs, but I do want to stress that it probably is program dependent how each one will handle the situation. And for the Spanish Ministry of Education, at the time you get accepted, I believe you have 10 days to decide. Yeah. So it's a bit narrow of a window, especially if you're waiting for other things. Although with Spain, I probably will say that of all the opportunities, you probably hear from them last or one of the last ones.
Exactly.
So that's, just kind of how their government does things. But I think, in many cases, you can request for an extension. And I mean, worst case scenario is they say no, or and I imagine that many would honor that, because many of these programs, especially I think in today's, I guess, climate with COVID, the application numbers might be down, so they might be more in need of having English teachers join their programs. So I think flexibility, there will be more flexibility in many ways, but especially in regards to your question. So I think that is a good strategy.
It looks like we have another question about ELI 390 in the chat.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you for this question. You would only be required to volunteer during the time that you sign up for during 390, but all of the organizations to date that we have ever partnered with for that class would be like, yay, yes, stay with us, come back. Some of them will finish the school year in June and then it'll sort of dissipate for the summer rather than being a year-round program, but some of them are year-round and would absolutely love to have volunteer involvement. Certainly, beyond the end of April into the end of the school year or through the summer or back again the following fall. That'd be awesome. Sure.
So this event is scheduled to end at 1:15 p.m. So we do have another 10 minutes in case any other folks have questions. Okay. Well, if there are no public questions, I think we will wrap up the formal presentation, and then maybe the presenters, if you are okay with hanging around online for a few more minutes just to see if any folks might have more individual questions. But thank you all so much for attending. It's always a pleasure to do this presentation and to hear about the sorts of opportunities that you all are interested in. I want to especially thank my colleagues from the English Language Institute for partnering with the International Center on this session. Every time I know I learn something new from you all and all the expertise that you have in this area. So thank you, Anna, Pamela, for your time in creating this presentation. If any of you attendees, if you have follow-up questions, you see the email address for the International Center on the slide, as well as the general email address for the English Language Institute. Feel free to reach out to us with questions. And with that, we will close, and feel free to stay on the line if you have any individual questions.